Okay, so you're on a budget looking for a used iPhone and are confused between the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 13, both of which are actually pretty decent phones. Well, in that case, you, my friend, are at the right place. Once again, I'm making up rhymes as I go. Anyways, I've used both these phones quite a bit in the past couple of months, and I feel I can help you make the right decision for your use case. So stick until the end of this video and we'll find out together if the iPhone 11 or 13 is better for you. Now, one of the most important aspects you might be looking for is good battery life. While the 11 packs a 3110 mAh cell, the 13 packs in a slightly bigger battery at 3240 mAh. But that is not the only ace the iPhone 13 has up its sleeves. It also has an OLED panel and a more efficient A13 Bionic chip. Combine all these factors together and it's easy to see why the iPhone 13 would last longer than the 11. And that's exactly what happened in a recent battery test I did. Even with 87% battery health, the iPhone 13 outlasted the 100% battery health iPhone 11 by almost 60 minutes. So if battery life is most important to you, I guess the iPhone 13 is a no-brainer. Plus, it also has MagSafe, which I must admit I didn't care for at first, but is now an essential everyday use feature. But maybe like me, you don't really care about battery life that much. I mean, I'm someone who has access to a charger for most part of the day as I work from home, so having a good battery life, at least for me, is not a top priority. On the other hand, having a good camera system is something I or you might be looking for in a smartphone. And that is where things become interesting between the iPhone 11 and 13. By the way, I'm also planning to do a camera test between the iPhone 11, 12 and 13, so subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss it. For now, we won't do as detailed of a comparison, but I'll still cover the most essential aspects of a camera system. In portrait shots, both phones do relatively well with edge detection and the blur effect, but they do mess around the face. A tiny difference you'll notice is the iPhone 13 implementing a gradual blur while the 11 does not. For both the phones though, in some of the photos I do not like the color reproduction at all, but it is still kind of passable. One of the biggest issues I've had with the iPhone 13 is its over brightening the face in certain pictures. It honestly looks so damn fake. Even after taking more shots, it still seems to be there. I personally do not like it at all and feel the 11 does much better in making the shots look more natural. When we do take people out of the equation, the photos from both the ultrawide and the main sensor do start to look very similar. I mean so similar that I could use that office meme here. But hey, this is to be expected. The 11 and 13 have the same main and ultrawide camera with minor differences in the aperture. So not exactly a shock that random day-to-day objects do look alike in most scenarios. But as you have seen in portrait shots, when the subject is a person, that's when the results start to widely differ. If you do take mostly portrait shots, which I assume a lot of people do, I don't think I could recommend the iPhone 11. Also, a viewer did comment about having a similar issue on his iPhone 13, but let me know in the comments if you have seen it before. In nighttime photography, the 13 is easily the better iPhone. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The 11 doesn't support night photos with the ultrawide or the front camera, while the 13 does. So that is a clear advantage for the 13. As is the case, both phones do suffer from lens flare. Anyways, photos do look nice, but they do start to fall apart as soon as the light decreases. I don't take a lot of nighttime shots, so this is one aspect of a smartphone which doesn't excite me as much. What does excite me is the video quality from the main sensor. The video you're currently looking at is 4K 30, but both phones can do 60 frames as well. Now just like with photos, the video output for both iPhones is very similar. Color reproduction, contrast, detail, shadows are pretty much on point. The only minor difference I do notice, and that's only when you pixel peep, is the slightly more stable footage of the 13 due to its sensor shift OIS. Also, the 13 has cinematic video mode which the 11 does not. Not only that, but it also has Dolby Vision HDR video. So I guess if you do want a phone to create content, I would recommend the iPhone 13 since HDR and cinematic video is a big plus nowadays. After looking at all the photos and video, I must admit that I'm more inclined towards the iPhone 11. It produces as good and in some cases better shots than the iPhone 13. It only lags behind in cinematic and HDR video, which it doesn't support. But if you don't really care about it that much, I think the iPhone 11 is still a really decent camera system. Let's now talk about the displays. Just like battery life, the decision here is straightforward. The 13 has a superior panel in all aspects. It has an OLED panel compared to the LCD of the 11. This makes contrast and black levels on the 13 way better than the 11. The 13 also happens to have a higher brightness panel, coming in at a brightness of 800 nits compared to the 625 of the 11. And it also bumps up to a whopping 1200 nits while watching HDR content. On top of that, the bezels on the 13 are slimmer than the 11. All these factors, along with the fact that the OLED panel adds to the battery life, make the 13 an obvious choice for you. Now, while I consider battery life, camera, display as the three main pillars of a great smartphone, there's other factors we cannot ignore. There's the fact that the iPhone 13 is 20 grams lighter than the 11, and that makes a big deal while dealing such a phone. Its overall footprint is also a bit smaller than the 11. The 13 also features the new design language with sharper edges compared to the curvier sides of the 11, although I'm one of the people who do feel the 11 is nicer to hold in the hands. If you want 5G, the 13 has it while the 11 does not. The 13 also has a much more powerful chip than the 11. It outperformed the 11 in my speed test video. The 13 will also get longer software support than the iPhone 11. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that the iPhone 13 was released 2 years later than the iPhone 11, so of course it'll have things that are more advanced than the iPhone 11. But if all you care about is battery life, camera, or display, well, in that case, the decision is yours to make. But there's also the question about money. If you're willing to shell out more, then the iPhone 13 obviously is the right choice, but if you're tight on budget, the iPhone 11 isn't as bad as it sounds. It's still got a couple of years of life left before Apple abandons it. With that, folks, it's time to say goodbye. I'll catch you all soon in the next one.